The observation deck of the Galactic Wildlife Conservation Station hung suspended above the crystalline forests of Vareth, 7, where the most dangerous predators in 3 sectors made their home. Dr. Mara Vance stood with her back to the panoramic window, facing a semicircle of skeptical xenobiologists who represented 17 different species. You want to do what? Commander Thexlar's mandibles clicked in agitation, his Crithian carapace gleaming under the station's artificial lights. I want to raise the Vareth stalker cub, Mara repeated calmly, her hands clasped behind her back. The one whose mother was killed in the plasma storm last week. The room erupted in a cacophony of protests, chittering, buzzing, and what might have been screaming in ultrasonic frequencies Mara couldn't hear but could feel vibrating in her chest. Impossible. The collective representative, a mass of bioluminescent tentacles named SH Laura, pulsed red with alarm. Vareth stalkers are apex predators. They've killed trained warriors from a dozen species. That cub will grow to 3 times your size, with claws that can slice through battle armor. It's suicide. Mara had expected this reaction. Humans had only joined the galactic community 40 standard years ago, and their reputation preceded them. Reckless, emotional, inexplicably drawn to danger. But also, somehow, inexplicably good with animals that terrified everyone else. I've reviewed the data, she said quietly. Without intervention, Koro will die. He's only 6 weeks old. He needs constant care, specialized nutrition, and then we'll euthanize him humanely. Thexlar interrupted. It's the kindest option. Vareth stalkers cannot be domesticated. They cannot be trained. They certainly cannot be raised by a species with no natural defenses. His compound eyes fixed on her soft, clawless hands with something like pity. Mara took a deep breath. Permission to share a memory? The room fell silent. Memory sharing was intimate in galactic culture, rarely done in professional settings. She activated the holo projector. The image that materialized showed a much younger Mara, perhaps 8 standard years old, standing in what appeared to be a primitive dwelling on Earth. In her arms, she cradled something that made several of the xenobiologists recoil. That's a Terran wolf pup, SH Laura breathed. Your apex predators. Mara corrected. Thousands of years ago, yes. Now we call them dogs. This one's name was Shadow. I found her abandoned on our farm. Everyone said she was too wild, too dangerous. My own father wanted to. She paused, handle it humanely. The hologram shifted, showing the same girl, now a teenager, running through snow alongside a massive gray wolf. No, not quite a wolf anymore. The creature's eyes held intelligence and devotion. I didn't train her, Mara continued. I didn't dominate her or break her spirit. I just cared. I fed her when she was hungry. I kept her warm when she was cold. I played with her. I learned her language, and she learned mine. We built trust. One anecdote does not constitute scientific evidence, Thexlar protested, but his voice had lost some of its certainty. You're right, Mara agreed. So let me give you statistics instead. On Earth, we've formed cooperative bonds with hundreds of species. Not just wolves. We've worked alongside creatures that could, and did, kill us. Bears, large cats, even your Earth equivalent of apex predators. And you know what we learned? She advanced the hologram to show images from Earth's history. Humans riding horses, working with elephants, training eagles, even swimming with creatures called Orcs. Every intelligent species in the galaxy approaches dangerous animals the same way, with fear, with weapons, with the assumption that might makes right. But humans, she smiled. We approach them with curiosity, with empathy. We don't see a threat first. We see a being that feels fear, hunger, loneliness, just like we do. A new voice spoke up. Dr. Winters, the only other human on the station, stepped forward from where he'd been quietly observing. Commander, I've been studying Dr. Vance's proposal. The physiological similarities between human parental care behaviors and what a stalker cub would need are remarkable. Our body temperature, our feeding schedules, even our sleep patterns align almost perfectly. That's coincidence, Thexlar muttered. Maybe, Winters conceded. Or maybe humans evolved as persistence hunters and caregivers because we had to understand the animals around us. Not as prey, not as threats, as neighbors, as family. Mara pulled up the final image, a live feed from the medical bay. Koro lay in a sterile containment unit, his silver blue fur matted, his enormous eyes, already showing the reflective quality that would make him a perfect nocturnal hunter, were dull with grief and confusion. "He's dying," she said softly. "Not from injury or disease. From loneliness. From fear. Every test we've run shows his stress hormones are critical. He needs someone. He needs pack. Family." The room was silent for a long moment. Finally, Laura's bioluminescence shifted to a soft blue, uncertainty mixed with hope. "If we allow this, you understand the consequences if you fail? If he becomes aggressive, if he injures someone, I'll accept full responsibility." Mara said immediately. Thexlar's mandibles worked silently. Then, with what might have been a sigh, "Conditional approval. But the moment there's any sign of danger, you'll be the first to know," Mara promised. 3 months later, the same observation deck hosted a very different gathering. Scientists from across the station crowded the windows, watching the scene in the enclosure below. Dr. Mara Vance sat cross-legged in the artificial grass, her hands running through the fur of a creature that now massed nearly 60 kilograms of muscle and claw. Koro's purr, a sound that vibrated like distant thunder, could be heard even through the reinforced glass. "Remarkable," Thexlar murmured, his earlier hostility replaced with scientific fascination. "She's teaching him to hunt, but he keeps bringing the practice prey back to her first. Seeking approval. Pack behavior," Winters explained, grinning. "He thinks she's his mother. And in every way that matters, she is." In the enclosure, Koro suddenly tensed, his predatory instincts catching something in the grass. He pounced with devastating speed and precision, the apex predator emerging. But then he turned, the captured toy in his jaws, and bounded back to Mara with all the enthusiasm of a puppy. She laughed, and the sound carried through the observation deck. "Good boy, Koro. Good boy." Laura pulsed a warm amber. "I believe I understand now. It's not that humans are fearless. It's that they choose love over fear, even when it's illogical. Especially when it's illogical. That's humanity for you," Winters said. "We looked at wolves and saw dogs. We looked at wild horses and saw partners. And now, we look at an apex predator that terrifies the galaxy." He gestured to the scene below, where Mara had fallen backward in the grass, laughing, while Koro carefully pinned her with paws the size of dinner plates, his fearsome jaws gently grasping her arm in play. "And we see family." Outside, the twin sons of Verith, 7, set over the crystalline forest. In the growing darkness, Koro's eyes began to glow with that characteristic reflective quality. But instead of hunting, instead of stalking into the night as his instincts demanded, he curled his massive body around the small human who had refused to let him die alone. And in that moment, the xenobiologists watching understood a fundamental truth about humanity. They didn't trust humans with their young despite humans being fragile and clawless. They trusted them because of it. Because a species that could turn wolves into dogs, that could find family in the wild, that could choose compassion over survival instinct. That was a species that understood what truly mattered. Not strength, not dominance, but love.